We don't know.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that works.
Hey, gang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Episode 2 of the Watchful Penguin, Ryan and Tyson sports segments show.
Yeah, sports.
We don't get enough sports on the Watchful Penguin when you're not around.
No, that's a shame.
Tends to be lacking.
Yeah. Because to do sports, you really need somebody to argue with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I think that the viewers of this podcast are going to figure out pretty quickly.
I think so.
Yeah.
As long as we maybe avoid.
It's like the last time we had a show, we had complete agreements on everything,
odd.
and it never happens.
Usually, you want to lead with your strongest foot first,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't. Because what we do best is argue.
We're like, I agree, handshake.
Yeah. Everything we said, we're like, yep, no, I see your point there.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest point we argued about was when you thought Vad Lee was the quarterback for Ole Miss.
That was just.
But I had to correct you that he was actually the quarterback for Georgia Tech.
That was just a mental error on my part, having not watched enough Ole Miss football.
Well, Ole Miss or Georgia Tech. But that wasn't even an argument. That was just
Somebody get this freaking duck away.
Yeah.
The last time we talked about Georgia Tech on the Ryan and Tyson show.
Yeah.
I accidentally hit the wrong button, and we had the random somebody get this freaking duck away thing going on in the background.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And Georgia Tech, get this freaking duck away.
Yeah.
And there's the
Never made sense to me.
no,
It's just you hit the wrong button.
yeah.
That was just one of those things you randomly edited in later because
Nope.
there was some reference outside that.
Nope.
Nope, there
Well,
wasn't.
just wrong buttons.
I wish it would have gone global, and every time somebody hears Georgia Tech, they think of ducks instead of Yellow Jackets.
Well, we probably should maybe done a better job of advertising it instead of just burning it to a CD and having the only listener being my mom.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
true.
Probably would have been a little better.
That's what we're doing now. We're advertising via YouTube.
Yes, we are. We
Oh.
are on
You
Tube.
Oh,
and Google
.com.
Plus. Yeah.
and Google
Google
Plus.
Plus. Yes, Google Plus Hangouts.
No one's probably watching.
Not currently, no. We have 0 viewers.
That's
Of
good.
course, we probably could have advertised on Twitter and Facebook.
Well, had we known
Might
that
have
we were actually going to show up when we were going to show up.
Well, yeah, that's the problem is planning you guys showing.
We didn't really.
Especially
We didn't
you.
really plan.
Well, no, we didn't really plan that. We just
No.
said, hey, let's go to Dustin's.
Hey, we're doing this today.
Hey, I'm off work,
Okay.
and so we're going to do a podcast because it's Thursday.
Random
It's not even on a regular day.
No,
No, it's really not.
we never really had a regular
It
day.
is true.
The closest thing we had was Friday nights, like during our first year in college.
Yeah.
And then after that,
I took.
things happened.
Yeah.
I got busy.
Yeah. So there's that.
I discovered booze.
Yeah. Sad day for me.
No, it was second year. You discovered booze before that.
Senior year of high school.
Oh,
Anyways, so we're going to do a show.
Okay.
It's going to be great.
Booyah.
yeah, something like that.
See you guys after the show.
After the show. Our discussions.
Not
All
discussions.
right, so, well,
Arguments.
arguments. Yes. There better be some good arguments this time. No, I'm just kidding.
So we'll wait till we get to some.
We'll see what we can do. Wait till we get to the East Coast.
The East Coast. Oh, okay.
No, yeah, seriously,
It might get vicious. People might get punched.
Oh.
Hello?
Nope, not at all.
I got it.
Yeah, so, getting ready to
All right, let's do this.
hit the podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beep.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Ryan and Tyson Show, brought to you by the Watchful Penguin. I'm your host, Dustin Southworth, aka Captain Math, and with me are people looking for various items to write with, but your hosts, Ryan Salisbury and Tyson Evronic. Take it away, guys.
All right. Well, Tyson's busy looking for a pen. He didn't exactly plan this far into the future.
No, he didn't.
Found one. So, yes, welcome back to our second installment of the Watchful Penguin production
Yeah, there
of
you go.
the Ryan and Tyson Show.
Yes.
This will be our fall preview,
Yeah.
college football season preview. I'm going to say as many words as I can together.
I'm going to say
Repeat words.
to make it sound really, really professional.
To make it sound really professional and really, really important.
Well, here's what we're going to do. I mean, the college football season is kicking off here in Nebraska, and what we normally would have to really help celebrate that college football kickoff and to really embrace the fact that the season is going to be here, we're going to lead off on that topic because this is also a video game / electronics general entertainment things that are happening. We have talked about video games before, and one that's very absent off shelves this year, Ryan, is NCAA football.
Yeah.
We
want to open that can of worms.
We can just say one word. Thank you, Sam Keller, for leading that lawsuit, which has, of course, been all about getting the compensation for college athletes to have their names, or not names, but likenesses and appearances be on those video games. And to me, I say this: even if you made a video game that didn't have the likenesses or appearances, somebody's going to make a patch for it out there.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. It's not that difficult to do. I for one, don't understand the likeness, because I understand that there's a lot of college athletes that love to play the video games because they're like, let's see what EA Sports has got my speed up at this year. Am I a 93 or a 92? They enjoy that. But it was Sam Keller, after his NFL career / any football career went down the tubes.
After he broke his collarbone in Nebraska, he pretty much just resigned and moved to bartending in Arizona.
And needed some quick, easy way to get cash, and somebody must have thought of that. So it's a shame that the game is not on the shelves. It was always our favorite game to play, and the reason I had upgraded to various consoles. NCAA Football 2003 was the reason I got the PS2. NCAA Football 2000, was it 9? 8 was the reason I got the PS3.
Which is the one that Sam Keller was suing over, because he was saying that's what portrayed his likeness, but because he had a visor. Because it had a visor, but in that game you either had visors or you didn't have visors. Like, it just, it was a terrible game. He's suing over that.
There was no light visors or gray-colored visors, or no
black visor,
or no visor at all,
But
the game,
in the sleeve.
Nonetheless, so the game has been delayed. I understand it's just delayed. That there's a possibility that they still might be able to come to some sort of an agreement
in the future
with the NCAA in the future. But as of now, it's not going to be on shelves anytime soon.
No, not anytime soon. They have to go through all the as long as there's appeals going on in the courts, which could take 4 or 5 years. It's still going to be off. So.
Well, this show is going to take 4 or 5 years if we don't start crashing into the thing. So we move on from our NCAA football discussion again. Damn shame that it's not going to be on the shelves. But let's focus here, and what we're going to do, I'll just structure the show. Ryan's here going to provide us with his insightfulness. I will provide you with probably counterpoints periodically throughout the show, but we're going to run down the conferences for you. The major conferences: SEC, ACC, Big 12.
No American, no MAC here.
No American or MAC, but we'll do the Big 12, Pac-12,
SEC,
and SEC,
and Big 10,
and Big 10. Oh yeah,
and ACC,
and for those are the conferences that are there. We'll run down the major conferences. We'll talk about the playoff picture. And we'll throw in maybe a few dark horses along the way from those mid conferences that we think maybe might put a wrinkle, if you will, in the BCS picture.
Teams that harken back to the Boise State and TCUs of old.
The teams that would cry because they wouldn't get into a BCS game. And so we'll look at those teams, which teams might be one of those crying come this new playoff picture. With that, let's just start off by talking about the playoff picture, because it is a wrinkle to many of those who haven't been following college football. And I admit it's a very difficult process to follow. From conference realignment to the playoffs being talked about but not being implemented. I mean, this was talked about and approved, but not actually starting until this year. I mean, when it was done last year. So this year it does go into effect. It's a 4-team conference playoff, and from what I understand, there's a selection committee and a certain sort of criteria that they got to hit. Yeah, the selection committee will come down and vote, and our Tom Osborne is one of the people who's been elected to appoint or to vote on which teams make it. It's just basically the top 4 teams at the end of the year. It doesn't matter conference, doesn't matter whatever. Just as long as those teams prove worthy by their rating that they get in, as far as I understand. Certainly, ratings are going to go into effect. There's multiple polls with polls are going to take effect. Just how teams look at the end of the year. Conference championship games are going to play into effect. Even if a team even if say you get a 2-loss SEC team, but they go into the conference championship game, maybe ranked 10th, but dominate, easily could jump up there. So what's this going to do to the whole BCS ranking system? As far as the BCS ranking system goes, it's just going to make it, instead of just vying for point 1 and 2, you're going to be vying for 1 to 4. Mm-hmm. Again, Ryan Salisbury is joining us here on the Ryan and Tyson Show as we're going to start diving into the conferences. Now let's take a look at conference previews. We'll start with what's been the most powerful conference in college football the past several years, and that's the SEC. All the pundits are pointing to Alabama to make another run. Is there even reason to disagree with them at this point?
It's really hard to see against Alabama. The only thing that you can maybe kind of point to is that they're starting a new quarterback. Oh my gosh, I blanked on his name. Oh my gosh, it's not Trickett. It's not Ponder.
Coker.
Coker. Yeah, Coker from
Coker Jr.
Coker, who's a transfer from Florida State. Everyone's pointing to. He's 6'5", 230, got an arm. He's probably the most physically talented quarterback that Nick Saban has had. But the question is, will he be able to run that offense and execute at a high level that's going to be required for Alabama in order to make it? It is the SEC. There is no bye week. There is no easy game. There's no given. Like, you're going to go up. Alabama has to go to Ole Miss this year. They play Auburn at home. They have to play Florida. Well, Florida's in a down year. Even Texas A&M at home. Texas A&M is going to be able to score points. Is their offense going to be able to do what they need to do? But okay, even if Coker isn't at a high level yet, I mean, you got Yeldon and you got Henry running the backfield and always a strong O-line, and then just sick athletes at your skill positions, especially Amari Cooper, wide receiver. It makes sense. I agree with the pundits. Like, it's easy to say Alabama's the best team in the nation. There's a reason they should be number one, and there's a reason that they should be picked to win the SEC. Not only SEC West, but just the SEC in general.
And certainly, you're looking at their skill positions; they're just absolutely loaded. I mean, they appear to me to be a team where you look at how much talent is surrounding Coker Jr. And I think to myself, my God, I could run that offense. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Is that to me, it's almost like, you don't need a 5-star quarterback in there. You don't need a All-American quarterback to run that offense, just based on all of the talent around it. And I think that's going to raise his talents and raise his abilities, just having that offense to work with. What an easy job to fall into.
Yeah, and that's what we saw with A.J. McCarron. He wasn't exactly the most athletically gifted. He was a game manager, but look what that game management style got them. They got him two national championships under McCarron. They came close last year. The question is now that maybe some of the other teams in the SEC are raising up and other teams are starting to adjust to Alabama's defense, be able to make some plays on there. They need maybe someone more than just simply a game manager now. They need somebody who's going to be able to stand in there, make the big throw, make the big pass, and make the big play. Because, you look at a team like Auburn. If I had to say right now, if I had to pick, this is a little bit of my gut, I'd say I'm taking Auburn to win the West.
Wow.
I like Auburn. I like that offense. You saw what happened when they played in the Iron Bowl last year. One mistake, one missed assignment, one thing, and it's 6 points. It's 6 points. Like, I'm not talking about the kick six return.
Right.
I'm talking about Auburn's last drive where Marshall hit Lewis in the open flat, and Lewis ran it in for a touchdown that ultimately tied the game up. It was Lewis. They ran a player in motion on a sweep. They ran a read option the other way to Mason. Marshall read that the read, he was supposed to keep the read, kept the read. An Alabama defender made a mistake, just jumped in for a second, jumped down to try and stop Marshall on the run. Marshall just lofted it over him. Lewis was wide open, and Lewis ran it in for a touchdown. I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult to contain. And the reason I like Auburn is Marshall's in his second year. He's going to be more experienced. They still have a plethora of running backs in the backfield, led by Grant and Artis Payne, who can still make fantastic plays. They got Lewis at receiver, Coates at receiver. They can make great plays. And Alabama, despite their defense, you saw, they kind of got scorched last year, especially late in the year by Auburn and by Oklahoma. Now they're starting. They only returned 3 starters from that defense. And the question is, are they going to be able to play and compete at a high level? I'm just not entirely sure. And I like Auburn's defense. I like Lawson and Adams. They're 2 new guys coming up on the line. They're guys who can get out there to the passer. Adams is drawing rave reviews from the spring and into the fall that he can be that kind of great pass rusher and just cause havoc in the middle. When you can have a D tackle that can cause havoc in the middle, it's going to be problems for everyone. I just think Auburn's offense is going to be trouble for anyone they go up against, and then their defense will do just enough. And that's the reason I'm taking Auburn.
But Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Alabama's the clear-cut favorite here. It's time for what we'll do is we'll do like a couple quick questions here on the conference, kind of back and forth, just to kind of feel out, who we like in certain matchups and certain rankings. So I'll throw this first one out to you. Texas A&M Aggies. Can they replace Johnny Manziel? Will they be able to be a strong football team in this season?
Well, the thing that they need to do is they need to get a defense. You saw that last year. Manziel still, the thing that just lost, Manziel still put great numbers last year. Him and Mike Evans and that offense were putting up very, very, very good numbers.
Yeah.
The problem was their defense was getting scored on by everybody. Even the group of Jewish rabbis who don't play football on Saturdays put up points against Texas A&M's defense last year. It was a problem. So Texas A&M needs to find a defense if they're going to be able to compete and win at a high level. They're probably going to start their true freshman Kyle Allen at quarterback. He fits the mold of Manziel. He's got a good arm, mobile. He can run the offense. He's a true freshman. I think they're still a little bit away, especially when they're playing in the SEC West, which is absolutely loaded. The question I would fire to you is that there's another team in the SEC West. You're always going to talk about Alabama and Auburn. It's Ole Miss. They've had very good recruiting the last couple of years. They have Bo Wallace, who's the most experienced quarterback coming back in the conference. They get both Alabama and Auburn at home. Do you think Ole Miss is going to be able to make a push and maybe be able to do something there?
I don't. No, listen, I'm not saying that Ole Miss has not built a very good program. They have a very respectable program. My questions, again, is when it comes down to the on paper and you're looking at the talent versus talent, I think Alabama and Auburn are the two strongest teams in on that side of the conference. Again, Bo Wallace had an incredible season last year, and him coming back even this year for Ole Miss I think their offense improves greatly. I think maybe that their defense might be a little bit susceptible to some big plays and at big times. I look for Ole Miss to be about mid-pack, to finish kind of right around with LSU.
Right around LSU. So I was just going to ask, what do you think about the Matt Hatter's team this year? They're usually a competitor. This year, a lot of people are picking them to be down. Do you tend to agree with that, or do you think they might be able to?
What I'm excited about LSU is I think I'm really confident in their ability to run the football and to be game management. What's his name? Is it Fournette? Fournette. I think he's going to be a tremendous running back for the Tigers this year. So I look for them to control the games that way, to cliche Tyson-Everonic football, if you will, ground and pound a little bit, not so much spectacular stuff through the air. Their defense under Les Miles has always been solid. Just with that ability to control the clock, I can see LSU, winning. It's definitely against Texas A&M. I can see them beating Mississippi. It's going to be homecoming in Death Valley. So, LSU will rank slightly above Ole Miss in my book.
Okay, so to recap the West, you're taking Alabama.
Yes.
I'm taking Auburn. But there's another side of the conference.
Yeah.
There's the East side. This one seems to be a little bit more open for debate. A lot of people are picking. If you're kind of paying attention to what preseason polls and preseason magazines and preseason talk shows are talking about, there seems to be two teams that everyone's maybe kind of jostling back and forth. It's at South Carolina and Georgia.
Right.
Your takes on this?
Up until even this morning of the show, I was really riding the South Carolina bandwagon. I thought that they were going to have maybe their best season in the SEC. They've shown glimpses of it with their running back, who unfortunately had
Mike Adams.
Even before Adams. This is prior to Adams. He had the nasty knee at Lattimore.
Lattimore.
So when Lattimore was there, when Clowney was there, everybody got really hyped on the South Carolina bandwagon, and unfortunately they fell a little bit short. But I think a lot of people are talking about how this is going to be their year. I was on that bandwagon until you really start to take a look at what Georgia has, and we saw it, of course, as Husker fans in the Gator Bowl,
which we won, by the way.
But you saw that Michael Bennett. You remember that? I mean, that name was synonymous with that Gator Bowl. Yeah,
Aaron Lynch was like kept making big plays. But the thing with Georgia, like Michael Bennett, I'll give you he's good, but they get Chris Conley and Malcolm Mitchell back, who are their big-time receivers, guys who can stretch the field, get open, and make plays. Those guys are playing at a thing. But if you're going to talk Georgia offense, the person you talk about is Todd Gurley.
Absolutely.
He was the guy who, luckily we were able to contain him enough, but he was probably going about 70-80% in the rain on a bad ankle.
Mm-hmm.
However, Todd Gurley, it wouldn't be shocking to see him be the first running back off the board and be kind of like we've seen in the draft. There's been a lot of running backs who have slipped to the second round. I think this year in the draft there wasn't a running back taken the first round, was there?
No.
I think Eddie Lacy was the year before, but he was taken the second round. Gurley's the kind of talent, the kind of ability where if you want a running back, he is someone you could take in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Todd Gurley and that offense. Hudson Mason showed decent last year. He's no Aaron Murray in terms of arm strength and game. Like, he's not quite at that level in terms of ability. But when you have Gurley at receiver, and if Mason can spread the ball around and do well and execute the offense, when you got Chris Conley and Malcolm Mitchell stretching the field, and a possession receiver like Michael Bennett who's able to make your catches and then always then you're going to have a good team. But the thing I like about Georgia, the reason I take Georgia, is Jeremy Pruitt. He was the defensive coordinator for Florida State last year. You saw that Florida State defense. They were attacking, they made turnovers, and they stuffed the run. Georgia, now he walks into another good situation at Georgia where he's absolutely loaded with talent, and he's going to be able to bring an attacking-style defense to the SEC, led by Rameek Wilson at linebacker, guys who can get after the pass rush, or guys who can get in the pass rush, get after the passer, stuff the run. And that's what Georgia, like, no one ever doubts that Georgia's recruited well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of they haven't been able to get it put together in all facets of the game. Mark Richt's a good coach. I think he finally got a good hire as defensive coordinator in Pruitt, and with their Mike Bobo, the offensive coordinator, he always is able to put together teams that are able to put up points. I like Georgia.
So then I will. Our final question in the SEC. You have Georgia and Alabama in the SEC title.
I have Georgia and Auburn.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Okay.
You have Georgia and Auburn in the title game.
Mm-hmm.
You just had a lot of high praise for Georgia. Would that give them enough boost to win the SEC title?
Gosh, yeah, no, that's a tough question. That's kind of one of those that you have to kind of really look at. It'd be a fantastic game to watch because Georgia's defense against Auburn's offense would be it'd be a lot of fun to watch. I would give the edge to Auburn because Gus Malzahn saw Pruitt last year in the national championship game, and Auburn was still able to put up points against Florida State's defense last year. They should have won that game. They just didn't execute. There was 3 or 4 plays where Auburn just missed open plays, or a receiver dropped a play. Auburn probably should have won the national championship last year. But I give the edge to Auburn. I like Malzahn. I like that offense. I would give the edge there. It's tough to say, but I would not be shocked if Georgia won it.
Here's the only reason. Well, not the only reason. I mean, I talked about the talent that Alabama has, but here's another food for thought on the Auburn Tigers. At Mississippi, at Georgia, at Alabama, 3 tough road games in the SEC.
No, I'm not down that at all.
Will they have enough left in the tank when it comes time for possible postseason football?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah.
Moving on, we head over to our conference, the Big Ten Conference, the conference of the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Okay.
A big split at the beginning of this school year with the addition to Rutgers and Maryland. There are now East and West conferences.
Thank God.
The Legends and the Leaders
is gone.
Is out of here, but it's created a lot of interesting discussion now because there is talent. Really, I thought well put together divisions with talent equally on all sides here. Let's start. Well, let's start in the West. We'll move to the West because that's where Nebraska is, and I want to get your thoughts because this is a very difficult division this year. This year especially.
This year especially. If you're kind of looking around, and like you say, there seems to be about 3 teams that everyone's putting forth that they could kind of be that can win it. Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, and it just kind of it depends on who you're looking at, and they all kind of rank them in the same general area, about that 26 to 34 range. They're all just kind of right in that area. It's just basically preseason pundits saying we're not really confident, or we don't really know any of these teams. They all kind of have their own strengths and weaknesses. It really could come down to either one. I think if you look at it a little bit more clearly, there is a team that has the ability to really walk away with this conference, to walk away with this division. And I do think it is Nebraska.
Okay.
The reason I say this, Wisconsin, very good program. However, they're running a 3-4 scheme. Their biggest defensive lineman is their nose guard, who goes about he's listed 294, so in reality, he's going about 10 pounds lighter, about 284. You cannot run a 3-4 scheme with a 285-pound nose guard, and then you have a 230-pound end on the one side and a 240-pound end on the other side. If you're going to do that, then you absolutely need linebackers who are athletic and can fly. They lost Borland, and their other linebackers, there's worry about they can't move laterally. There is no reason that teams like Iowa, Nebraska, Ohio State, Michigan, there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to have their O-line just line up and go straight at them. Like, I just don't understand how people are like so in love with Wisconsin. Granted, they have Melvin Gordon and Corey Clement, a running back duo who's going to be able to put up yards, run well. But when you have no defense, when you lose your entire front seven on defense, and you're running the 3-4 scheme, and your heaviest guy is 280, 285, that creates a bit of a problem. Granted, they have a cake but the flip side is their schedule is a cakewalk.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have been like, it's just basically been, here's your road to the Big Ten championship. It's like Candyland. It's literally, it's a cakewalk schedule. So that's the problem. And on the offensive side, on the offensive side, okay, they have Gordon and Clement, but they have absolutely no receivers, and no receivers separated themselves in the spring. No receivers show that they're capable of replacing Abadaris. No one is willing to step up, and then you're going to be relying on the passing ability of Joel Stave. I don't think so. Joel Stave got kind of exposed at the end of the year. He doesn't quite fit Gary Anderson's system for what Gary Anderson is looking for. They got Tanner McEvoy, who was played defense last year, played safety. He switched over to the offense. He had a chance at offense last year, but switched over ultimately to defense. Question is, can he play quarterback? I just think there's too many questions with Wisconsin, and I think that defense is going to end up hurting them. I don't know. I'm the only one who's really been saying that, but I think it's a definite possibility.
To me, it's interesting to me when you look at Nebraska football in terms of the preseason pundits, the experts that do these so-called predictions, because when I'm looking at these preseason predictions, they're following right along the lines with you're looking at a team on paper. You're looking at the strength of schedule, and you're making these predictions. And that's where I would completely agree with you, that on paper, Nebraska looks to be the most talented team, at least in the Big Ten West.
If you read like other coaches, like they put inputs and stuff, and like they said, like make no mistake about it, Nebraska has the talent to win not only this division but the entire conference.
You're talking about a defense that people that are putting up question marks on the defense, but I'm looking at Michael Rose, David Santos, Randy Gregory. Those three alone are going to be standout talent for the Black Shirts. Corey Cooper would be a
Azari Anderson.
I'm unsure on Azari at this point.
I'm more sure on Azari than I am on Santos. Santos can't cover in space. That's why Aaron Lynch had a huge game in the Gator Bowl with Santos.
Okay.
And that's why Minnesota beat us.
You are right about that.
With Nebraska, it starts up front. If you're going to win a conference, it starts up front. And in the West, you can make the case. I think the West will come down to Iowa and Nebraska because both teams, in terms of being built, are built on the offensive line and on the defensive line. I think Wisconsin has a very good O-line.
If we're talking O-line, Wisconsin has everybody beat.
Maybe
Wisconsin might be one of the best O-lines in the nation.
Maybe, yeah, they might be, but their D-line not very good. And so I think like you need to be complete on both sides of the offense and the defensive line. So we're talking about both, and I think Nebraska probably overall has the best. You can maybe make a case for Iowa, but I think you go with Nebraska. When you got an All-American and Randy Gregory lining up, McMullen can anchor the other side. The loss of Avery Moss hurts, make no mistake about it. McMullen can anchor the other side, though. He drew a lot of rave reviews in the spring. He's playing. He fits that base D end that Pelini is looking for. But then the thing that's going to cause havoc is Vincent Valentine and Malik Collins. Those two guys, Gregory is going to demand double teams, but Collins and Valentine can just power through anybody. Freak of nature, super strong. Collins is too, but Collins also has the speed and agility and moves to play some outside. They've played him some 3-4 at defensive end. Those two are going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups, and there's no reason, absolutely no reason, that those two shouldn't win pretty much every one-on-one matchup that they go into this year against every team they face. Miami, Fresno State, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Iowa. They should be able to win their fair share and get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, clog up running lanes, and then allow Rose, Anderson, Santos, Banderas to get in there and create havoc and fill running lanes and stuff the run, and then also get after the passer on third downs.
So you're going to take the Huskers to win.
The thing is, our schedule sucks. The thing
It's awful.
The thing with Nebraska, well, it's not awful. Like it's not.
It's a terrible schedule.
It's not. The thing that's bad is that we drew Michigan State out of the East.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Like if we didn't draw Michigan State out of the East, if we would have drawn somebody else, I would have been okay with it. Like I know we have to. Well, Ohio State, yeah, Ohio State. But like, okay, if we would have drawn Michigan, Maryland,
Penn State.
Yeah. Well, even Penn State.
Indiana.
I wouldn't like to play at Indiana. They don't have a defense, but their offense can put up points. However, like, okay, going to Camp Randall and going to Iowa City, okay, like that's kind of tough. Our schedule, it looks tough on paper, but like,
yeah,
it's one of those things where we have. I'm gonna say right now, I take Nebraska to win the West.
Okay.
I think they have it, and I think their offense is going to surprise people. There's going to be what you saw kind of in the Gator Bowl with a lot of the severe and a lot of the sweeps with like Kenny Bell and Jamal Turner, Jordan Westerkamp sweeping in the backfield, allowing Tommy Armstrong to make reads, play on the option. Like that's what he does the best. And then you mix in your passing game with a vertical passing game down the field. That's what the offense is going to look like, and I think a lot of people are going to be genuinely surprised when they see Nebraska's offense.
Okay. Well, you said it yourself a little bit earlier. You talked about the play up front on the offensive line and the defensive line being a very big contributing factor.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, when we're talking about, and as I mentioned when I was talking about LSU and how I think that they're going to maybe even bounce Auburn for that 2 spot in the SEC, I think the very similar case that I'm going to make for Wisconsin here to give them the nod. I think that they have one of the best offensive lines in the country. I think that they will be able to establish the run, wear down the defense, despite how many playmakers the Black Shirts have. I could see Wisconsin wearing this team down. And
the thing with Wisconsin though is they have nobody on the outside, absolutely nobody on the outside to throw to. There's nobody out there. The Huskers can line up and load 9 in the box. 9 in the box, and that you can allow Mitchell and Rose on the outside, or Mitchell and Davey, or Mitchell and Cockrell. It doesn't matter who your other cornerback is. They have nobody on the outside to stretch the field. Absolutely nobody on the outside to stretch the field, and absolutely nobody to throw to. That's my reason. Like, if they find receivers, okay, this can be a potent offense. But Melvin Gordon and Corey Clement aren't going to be able to do anything when people are lining 9 in the box, then they have no outside threats at receiver.
Again, I think...
And their defense.
Oh my goodness gracious, their defense. I honestly, I can't name you one player on the Wisconsin's defense.
I can, and they're not good.
Right.
Yeah. Herring, Trotter.
Lost you there.
Yeah, no, Herring, Trotter. They have Herring's their biggest guy. He's their defensive tackle, and then Trotter and Trotter's a linebacker.
Ryan's getting worked up over here.
I'm getting worked up. His mic keeps going out. Okay,
blue
go ahead.
The mic. Wisconsin Badgers.
Okay.
Again, it's not that I'm not being a loyal Husker fan.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm honestly giving, if I'm putting this thing on paper together and I'm looking at the Big Ten and I'm kind of factoring in schedules together, I think Wisconsin's got a very good program. I think they're going to, and even looking ahead at the future, if they can recruit some receivers, if they can recruit some help on the outside, as you said, this team could be dangerous for a couple of years to come. So Wisconsin is my favorite in the West, despite the head shake and the slew of texts that I will get after the show.
Okay.
East boils down to
2 teams.
There's already a phone call.
People upset.
Angry Husker fans. 2 teams in the East. There's no doubt about it. It's either Ohio State or Michigan State, and you can make a case for either.
You really could. It would be easy to make a case for either. I am going to take Ohio State. My case for Ohio State is this.
Okay.
They have Braxton Miller, potential Heisman candidate.
Sure.
And the thing was, Ohio State, very, very good team. The thing that hurt them last year, their defense. It was inexperienced, didn't have the players that they needed. Now their D-line, probably the best D-line in the Big Ten, led by Spence and Bosa on the outside with Bennett clogging the middle. Their D-line is going to, and like, that's their starters. They're deep, and they're talented along the D-line. They're going to be able to rotate people in. They're going to be able to get after the pass. They're going to be able to get after, and you know they're going to force teams to score points because Braxton Miller and that offense is going to put up points no matter what, and it's going to force teams to continue up with them, to play up with them. And if you got Bosa and Spence crashing on the outside, creating havoc, creating pass, I think Ohio State, and it's Urban Meyer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to like the guy. I think a lot of people say in real life he's kind of a scumball. say what you will about him, he knows how to coach college football, and I think he gets it.
I'm gonna go on the Michigan State Spartan side of things.
It's fair enough.
And I'm gonna go just because I've seen that defense in action. That defense is something else. We saw it in the Big Ten championship. We saw it in the Rose Bowl. I mean, these guys, Calhoun, Waynes,
Adams,
Jones, Tywan Jones, is a sensational defense. And I think honestly, when it comes down to it, when that matchup hits the field, it's going to be a good football game.
Oh, it will, no doubt about it. That'll be a lot of fun.
Football game on the eastern side. Providing, and of course, we always say this. With any predictions or projections, of course, it's a duh. But providing the team remains healthy, their defense is going to be strong, and I think they can stop Ohio State.
Their defense did lose a little. It's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to get back to the level that they were. Because when you lose some of the players that they lost, they're going to have to retool. But
it just seems like they reloaded.
It seems like they reload. Their offense might have to kind of carry them early on until their defense figures it out. But they don't play Ohio State until November 8th. So you would guess that Pat Narduzzi and that Michigan State defense will have something figured out by then. I think it'll be a great game, and that will most likely decide the division.
Time for a couple conference questions. I'll start with you, Ryan. Maryland and Rutgers are going to be the top story in the Big Ten this year.
No, they won't.
Well, they're going to be the top story in the fact that they're the new incoming teams.
Okay.
How do you see the two teams faring this year?
I think Maryland will at least be able to do some. I think they'll play well, and they might get up. They might pull one or two upsets. But Rutgers is a train wreck of a program right now, and I say the most you're probably going to hear from them, like after the first, welcome to the Big Ten, the first inaugural Big Ten week, welcome to Big Ten. Great. I think you'll maybe hear Maryland's name pop up one or two times throughout the course of the year, but they maybe pulled off an upset, beat like a Michigan, or pulled off maybe a dramatic upset or something like that. You'll maybe see that, but outside of that, I just don't think you're going to hear too much about them. Okay. My thought.
All right.
Okay.
Any other conference questions that we need to deal with on the Big Ten? Any other pressing matters?
I don't think so, unless you were feeling like you need to get some Iowa talk out there.
Not this year.
Okay.
Not this year. Line's good.
Line's good.
Offensive line's very good.
Defensive line's got some playmakers.
Where's your talent? They don't have the talent.
They don't have the linebackers. That's what hurts them.
And skill players. I'm looking at Iowa, and I'm not seeing a lot of skill players.
They have Weisman at running back.
I want to see skill players.
Okay.
I want to see skill players.
Okay. Fair enough.
Weisman, by the way, a Morningside transfer, NAIA school, transferred to Iowa.
Oh.
He was pretty good when they played Hastings College.
Well, a lot of people are good when you play Hastings College.
Food for thought. ACC is the next conference to be debated, and it might be debated pretty heavily here on the show.
Here we go.
There's a couple pressing points. We start off in the Atlantic Division. The clear-cut favorite, as everybody's been saying, is your Florida State Seminoles.
It's not my Florida State. No. Okay. The burden of the proof is on you on this one.
Sure.
Why doesn't Florida State win the Atlantic Division? Why?
I don't. At the Atlantic Division.
Okay.
They could win the Atlantic Division. Why not? There's something out there. Call it gut feeling. Call it what you will. Call it stupid. Call it dumb. I don't think this is Florida State's year to A, repeat as Atlantic Conference champions, or B, get into the college football playoff. Yes, they are the most talented team in the ACC without question. Pretty much at every single position that you could possibly be. Who has the nod? Florida State. At every single position. I look at teams, and I'm not done making my point. Stop. Yes, you're going to probably say Florida State's offense is ungodly.
No, I'm going to ask you the question. Okay, if you're going to say they're not going to win the Atlantic Division,
yes,
and you need to put somebody else fourth, who else is going to do it and why?
Clemson.
Why?
Defense. Defensive line. Their defensive line, their linebackers, they're going to stop Florida State.
No, they're not.
They're going to stop Florida State.
No, they're not.
They're going to be in the ACC
No, they're not.
Atlantic Division title game.
No, they're not.
Yes, they. Why? Okay, why not?
Florida State has 5 returning starters from a team that won the national championship last year. 2 of them are All-American candidates. Yeah, and
their defense is going to stop.
No, they're not going to stop them. Did they stop them last year? Absolutely not. And
the game was a train wreck last year.
Yeah, and that, you know where that game was? It was in Death
Clemson.
Valley. And guess where Clemson has to go this year?
They have to go to Tallahassee.
Yeah, they have to go to Tallahassee. And Clemson, most likely going to be starting a true freshman quarterback. Most likely.
And
Deshaun White.
I'm picking Clemson
Watson,
because
Deshaun
of the
Watson.
defense. I'm picking Clemson because of the
Name
defense.
one starter on their defense.
Vic Sweeney. Vic Beasley.
Vic Beasley.
Is what I meant to say.
He didn't do anything last year. He got dominated all game.
There's Grady Jarrett. He's on the defensive line.
Those guys played last year, and they didn't do anything against Florida State's offensive line.
Linebacker Stephen Anthony, is that his name?
Stephon Anthony?
Yes.
He's a 5-star who's never panned out.
He has potential, is what you mean.
No.
That's what 5-star that's never panned out means.
Okay.
It means he's waiting to
On the other side of the coin, then Clemson has to score points.
Okay.
How are they going to score points? They lost their top 2 receivers who were NFL draft picks. They lost their record-setting quarterback in Taj Boyd. They lost their running back. How is Clemson going to be able to score points? I know it's a Dabo Swinney offense and it's a Dabo Swinney head coach. They'll be okay.
They are young.
They are very young.
They have for the freshman quarterback, a freshman running back likely to get the slate start for Clemson.
And junior.
Junior
running back.
Well, who
Zach Brooks.
Who do you have starting for him?
Zach Brooks.
I'm going to say that Wayne Gallum gets the start,
Okay.
the redshirt freshman. So there's that. Offensively, I don't know. We didn't expect. We didn't know that freshman quarterback Taylor Martinez was going to be a star.
He was a redshirt freshman.
We didn't know that redshirt freshman Taylor.
Yeah,
Martinez
and look what happened.
Well, that's a couple of years down the road. They were.
Yeah, but look what happened his first year.
Yeah.
And then we played in a weaker conference. Our toughest competition that year was Missouri, and Missouri wasn't all that good of a team.
Okay.
No, it's if you want to just simply say gut feeling, just because you just don't think Florida State's going to repeat,
Yes.
okay, but
gut feeling, their defense.
what is
my
wrong with their
justification.
Your justification is Clemson's defense.
Yes.
Your justification is Clemson's defense.
Wins the Atlantic Conference Coastal Championship.
What happened between what we saw in Death Valley to next year that they're going to be able to stop Florida State's offense? What happened? Rashard Green, Jameis Winston, Nick O'Leary absolutely went off on Clemson's defense. Absolutely went off. What has changed?
You have to figure that there would be. I mean, granted, yes, you're talking about a Clemson team that doesn't have a Sammy Watkins. You're talking about a Clemson.
You're
team.
talking about their defense right now. What has changed on their defense that they're going to be able to stop Florida State?
Maturity.
Those guys were
One more
juniors
year.
and seniors last year.
The game was very early on in the season.
And Georgia smoked them, and Ohio State put up godly amounts of points.
Ohio State puts up godly amounts of points against anybody.
They didn't against Michigan State.
Because they have a good defense.
And so you're baiting on this Clemson team that has an average defense.
Who has a much improved defense.
No,
who has a more experienced defense. Who is back ready for another season. Yes. I'm picking Clemson.
Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. If you want to pick, I could at least maybe see Louisville with you. I could at least maybe give you justification for Louisville.
Oh yeah, they are in the ACC.
Yeah, and they're in Florida State. I'd say they're more of a potential threat than Clemson.
Nope.
But
Defense.
you've got to go Florida State.
Okay. Then go.
You
Florida
have
State.
to go Florida State.
Then go with them.
I'm going to. You
Excellent.
returned 5 starters on your offensive line. You got your Heisman winner, Jameis Winston. Do I think he'll match last year's production? Maybe not. But you got Carlos Williams at running back, who was a third-string, averaged 8 yards per carry, put up 700 yards and 11 touchdowns. You got Rashard Green returning at wide receiver, who's going to be the most productive receiver in Florida State history. You got Nick O'Leary at your tight end, who's just a matchup problem for anybody. And then a defense led by Mario Edwards Jr., who is another All-American candidate, Terrence Smith at linebacker, and then you got Jalen Ramsey and Ronald Darby in a very strong secondary.
Yes.
Florida State has the pieces, and there's really no one else to be able to compete. You're betting on Clemson, who always chokes away games. Clemson has yet to really prove to be consistent when they need to be.
Sure.
They choke away games. They have to go to Florida State. North Carolina is going to come into Death Valley. That's not a given. They get Louisville at home. Okay, so those are tough games, but I think you have to go Florida State.
That's fine.
Okay.
This sets the way, by the way, for more arguments to come, because we move on now to the ACC Coastal Conference, where
it's a bloodbath of mediocrity.
Stephon Anthony led the ACC in tackles, by the way, last year. Just good food for thought. Random stat. ACC Coastal Conference.
Stephon Anthony, because the D-line was not making tackles and they were allowing the linebacker.
I have Clemson winning the Atlantic. So that would set the way that if a team with this much offensive talent, like the Duke Blue Devils do,
They do not have offensive talent. They have Crowder, and that's it.
Anthony Boone.
No, he's
Is
the
their
most
starting
inconsistent quarterback. He is inconsistent. They won games in spite of him last year. Did you see the game against Virginia Tech? Did you see the game against...
Didn't happen to watch that one. Didn't happen to watch a whole lot of Duke football.
Yeah, and there's
up until like the last 2 weeks of the season.
And they got absolutely smoked by Florida State, and they got...
If I beg you correct, they had
Florida State couldn't get out of their way in the first quarter.
They had them on the ropes.
No, they did not. They scored 7 points.
Had them on the ropes.
They did not have them on the ropes. Florida State, if you watch the game, Florida State, you could tell Florida State just wasn't in rhythm. And Florida State, it wasn't anything that Duke was necessarily doing. Florida State, the moment got too big for Florida State. And once they calmed down, they opened up a woodshed on Duke. Absolute woodshed. Anthony Boone is the inconsistent, fat Ron Kellogg. That's all he is. Like, he maybe manages Cutcliffe's offense well, but he had just terrible turnovers, inconsistency, didn't make plays. You saw it at the end of the game against the Texas A&M game. They got out to a big lead. All he had to do was manage the game, and he couldn't even do that. And then Manziel showed him up.
Towards mid-pack and passing efficiency last year.
Mid-pack and passing efficiency. If he's going to be at Duke and they're going to have the defense that they're going to have to do, that dude better be first.
Yeah.
And he's not.
We'll see.
No, they have Crowder,
I think
and that's it. They don't. Who's their running back?
Who's their running back? Snead.
Snead and Shaquille Powell. But they don't. Their offensive line is okay, but their D line, they had experience like crazy last year, and they still got smoked. And those same guys are back. They have nothing. They have absolutely nothing.
I disagree.
If Duke finishes higher than third, I'll be surprised.
Okay. So you are really not on this Duke pick. I'm honest.
You're picking them. You told me you're picking them. You're picking them to win the Coastal.
Not only am I picking them to win the Coastal at this point.
They have no offense? Absolutely no offense.
Yes.
They have Crowder, and that's it. And you're picking them to win the ACC.
The whole entire bottle.
The stupidest damn prediction we have ever had on this show. It is. That is the stupidest prediction we've had on this show.
I want that marked and repeated when it happens.
No, I will eat so much crow if this happens, but I guarantee you right now that this does not happen. Okay. I bet everything I have on that does not happen.
Then tell me who your Coastal Conference champion is.
I'm probably... It's not going to be Duke. I'm leaning back and forth between Virginia Tech...
I'm looking at a very weak Coastal Conference.
I'm looking at a weak Coastal Conference,
which is
but
exactly where this is coming into play.
I'm looking at a weak Coastal Conference, but I'm also looking at a North Carolina team that... Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Marquise Williams.
So many of those teams in the Coastal got the first half of the season was an absolute train wreck.
It was embarrassing.
It was embarrassing. No, I will give you, it was embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
But as the season wore along, you saw progression and you saw teams get better. North Carolina finally figured out that Marquise Williams needs to start at their quarterback.
Yep.
They won 4 of their last 5.
Yep.
They went to a convincing bowl win. Pitt started a freshman at quarterback.
Yep.
They started a freshman at receiver. They started a freshman at running back.
Yep.
They got James Conner and Isaac Bennett starting at running back. Voitic, another year of experience at quarterback, again, make some plays. If you're talking about receivers in the ACC, Crowder's good, Rashard Greer is good, Tyler Boyd could be the best of them all in terms of size, speed, athleticism. Tyler Boyd at Pitt could be very, very good. I'm just saying. Now the question is on their defense, but they improved as the year went along, and they really showed at the end of the year that the Logan Thomas era is done.
Mm-hmm.
Bud Foster always puts together a solid defense. They got Edmonds and Cole coming back. They need to remedy their running game, and you have to have faith in Frank Beamer that he's going to figure it out. He's going to get back. You think like after 2 years of not being able to have really a strong running game, kind of a quarterback who wasn't really fit to run what they need to do.
Do they have the talent there, though?
Yeah, they do. Virginia Tech has the talent. They've always recruited well. They've always recruited to their system. Tech's always putting they're always putting guys into the draft. They recruit well. They know their system. They know who they're recruiting, especially on defense. And on offense, Trey Edmonds and J.C. Coleman those are sought-after running backs, and those guys who can do very good. They got a transfer from Texas Tech, and Michael Brewer as now their starting quarterback, and they always have receivers that are able to do just enough. But the thing is, the thing that always makes Virginia Tech is their defense. Bud Foster, they have that lunch pail defense, always comes to show up. So, I mean, if I had to pick right now for the ACC Coastal, I'm probably leaning more I probably have to go North Carolina.
Okay.
I think Quinshaw Davis, also receiver. He's a great target for Marquise Williams. Their defense always has enough. And Larry Fedora, he's at Southern Miss in about his second and third year. That's where Southern Miss really took off. There was one of those teams that was a mid-major conference that then came up, got to be that top 25, top 15 team. I think Fedora now, I believe he's going into his third year. Yeah, he's going into his third year. I think North Carolina, you kind of see now that he has his players. I think North Carolina is the team that wins the Coastal. But it is a weak, like you said, it is a weak division. But I think if you look at the end of the year and the progress that Pitt, North Carolina, and Virginia Tech all made at the end of the year, except for Duke didn't really make that progress. Duke, you kind of just saw Duke kind of fell apart and got exposed.
This ACC conference is really a gambler's Kentucky Derby, if you will. There are several long shots here that it's this year's Kentucky Derby. Florida State is your California Chrome. He's the one that everybody's telling you to put the money on. This is where I like to play my long shot plays, get a few teams in there to maybe ruffle the system up a little bit. And I
just, if you want to go somebody else, I just don't understand why Duke has to be one of those teams. It makes no sense. They beat one team with a winning record last year, and that was Virginia Tech, and they beat them 13-10, and that was early in the year, and that was a tragedy of a game. Like, it was a terrible game to watch. That was the only team they beat with a winning record last year.
That's fair.
And then they got smoked by everyone else.
They're my long shot play. They are my long shot play. I look for them to continue. I don't think it's fair to say they got smoked. I mean, didn't they won 8 games last year? So to say that they got smoked when they
played top shelf teams, they got beat.
So their matchups against
quality
opponents.
When they line up against quality opponents who have winning records, you see the flaw that is Duke. They don't have the talent and playmakers. They have Crowder. They have like one or two pieces where you can be like, okay, well, there's something there. But the thing is, on defense, they don't have anybody. They have nothing. That's why when they got against Florida State in the national championship, even though Boone, Crowder, those guys were rendered ineffective because Florida State was able to just absolutely dominate on defense.
I'm going to just run it down here in just a second. Okay, Duke. 5 games out of the chute. I think you're winning.
At Troy, Kansas, Tulane.
So then you're starting the season.
But they have to go to Miami. Okay. That's no given.
Yep.
They got at Georgia Tech, which is no given. Like, if Georgia Tech...
But as it's winnable. It's winnable.
Maybe.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10.
Okay.
They're not going to go 12-0.
No, they're not.
It's impossible. They won't go 12-0.
Look in conference.
Yes.
At not a given.
Okay.
At Georgia Tech, not a given. Virginia, win. At Pitt, they gave up 50 points to Pitt last. I don't think either. At Syracuse, we'll find out.
Win.
Virginia Tech, nope. North Carolina, nope.
Not a given. North Carolina, by the way, that November 20th game on a Thursday night for you people that have to look out at the schedules ahead of time. I like their schedule. I like everything about Duke. I am riding
They're the underdog
bandwagon.
You can ride their bandwagon, but that bandwagon is going to be up in flames after about week 7.
Okay,
I can tell you that right now.
All right, so we're on the record that you can get all the guff for publicly.
No, Duke, my public guff is that what I'm saying is Duke will not even be in the ACC championship game, and they will not win the ACC.
Fair. That's fair. I think they'll be there.
They will not.
I think
guarantee it right now. They will not be there.
Moving on. Pac-12. How much more time we got on the show, by the way, Captain Master of all numbers?
Well, depends on how long you really want to talk, but I don't know, 20 more minutes or so.
Thank you, Captain Matt.
Okay.
20 more minutes to get through 2 more conferences?
Yes.
And then
the Pac may not make it.
The Pac and the Big.
Pac-12, Big 12. 2 teams with 12, 1 team does not. We start in the Pac-12. Do you like that ring?
I do.
I thought that was pretty swell. I'm looking at a Pac-12. Let's start with the North because the North I think is the very easiest.
I do agree.
This is obviously Oregon's.
I do like Oregon here
To lose.
Stanford's lacking their playmakers at tight end. Oregon, you get Mariota back. It's tough to argue against Oregon here.
Does Oregon State? Do you like Oregon State as a long shot play?
As maybe a long shot play, it seems whenever somebody like distance them, you know, they always seem to do well. You know, Riley's a good coach. They have a quarterback who, I think it's Mannion.
Yes.
Okay. Right?
Sean
Mannion,
yes.
who can make plays. They always they always seem to do well on play. I still think Oregon's it's Oregon's to lose, I think, right now.
I think it might come down
We'll
to
also find out how good Oregon is when
Yeah.
they play Michigan State this year.
right off the bat.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for the Oregon State game to be kind of decided on the Civil War. That's where I think this conference may or may not be decided.
And Oregon also gets Oregon gets Stanford at home this year. So
Also true. But yeah, Oregon's like probably the most talented team in the Pac-12, I would say, on paper. Maybe withholding defense. Their defense isn't enough, and that's where you look at Oregon. That's where all the questions are. There's no doubt how strong this offense is, but you look at their defense, and I can't personally, except for that cornerback who has that funny name with the hyphen, can't tell you a player on their defense.
Eric Armstead, Derek Washington.
They didn't have a hyphen in his name.
No, he doesn't have. No, I'm talking about D-line and linebackers.
Okay.
But they do have some players. They have talent.
I'll do more research.
Eric Armstead was a 5-star recruit. He played as a freshman, had a bit of a sophomore slump. Finally realized he actually needs to put an effort into the weight room. If he put in effort and he took his obviously,
Side.
but I like Oregon.
Yeah, well, so do I.
Okay.
South side of the Pac-12, I'm going to take the UCLA Bruins, and really for one reason, Brian, and that's who I believe is.
Did you call me Brian?
That's what it sounded like.
I was going to say Ryan, but I'm probably thinking about Brett Huntley, and
Okay.
so I missed the first syllable.
So-
I think
A random B appeared in there.
I think Brett Hundley
Bees.
might be the best quarterback as far as NFL draft scouts are concerned. He's the best one in the class.
Yeah. I mean, you can make that case. That's a very possible case to make. Mariota and Winston are going to have something to say, but it's hard to argue. You have a valid point with Hundley. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just taking UCLA. Again,
I like that.
You look at offensive line, a bit of an edge on this side of things. Defensively, I think that they can match up. I think USC might be a little bit stronger on paper,
Maybe.
but I think UCLA can match up with them. And when it comes down, push comes to shove, you got to look at who's your quarterback play. And when you have one of the best quarterbacks in college football, it's hard to discount UCLA.
And then he has a plethora of skill position players with speed, so they're gonna be. Yeah, I agree. They'll be tough to beat. And then, I mean, like their defense, somewhat of a bend don't break, but they can get after it. And Jack, freshman All-American last year, at outside linebacker, he's back. Another year of conditioning, good to go. So I think UCLA will win the South.
So then we got UCLA Oregon. That creates a good matchup.
Sneeze. No snuggets.
UCLA.
That does create a good matchup. Man, I've kind of gone first on these. I'll let you take this one.
I'm going to take UCLA again.
Okay. Fair enough.
Again, because I'm not sold on Oregon's defense. You name me a few players on their defense.
But
I'm not sold.
Yeah, just because I can name a few players doesn't mean I'm sold either, and I'm going to agree with you. I'll go with UCLA. I think Hundley and the UCLA offense will get it done. Solid defense. I think it'll be if that's the championship game. A lot of fun to watch.
Sure.
Could be a lot of offense. Could be a lot of fun to watch. But I think UCLA is a more complete team, and they'll be ready to go.
So you're thinking this would be more fun of a championship game to watch than Duke and Florida State?
Yes.
Okay.
Or Nebraska, Wisconsin.
It's like rainbows at the end of a storm, isn't it? With the agreeing here at the end of it. But I do like UCLA to win this conference. This is going to be an interesting conference when we talk about conference questions, because there's a lot of questions, and I want to throw this first one at you. I think the Pac-12 has made a move to maybe be the most improved conference when we're talking about power rankings of the major conferences. There's a serious movement here going on, because you're looking at an Arizona team that's improving, a USC team that after all the crap that went on at USC, some of the dust is finally starting to settle, and they're now back. I'm looking at an Arizona team, which I don't think it's safe to say that they're in that rebuilding process anymore.
Arizona and Arizona State.
Yeah.
You said Arizona earlier. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that.
No,
you look at
both.
Yeah, Arizona and Arizona State. You don't think that they're going to be
You get Chris
out of
Peterson at Washington now.
Yeah.
Mike Leach at Washington State. Washington State's going to be a pain in a lot of people's. Like, they're going to cause problems for whoever they play in the coming years.
And Oregon State's Oregon State and Stanford are always a sound football program. Is it safe to say that the Pac-12 might be making a push here?
Maybe from top to bottom, like they might be like you can maybe make a case that from top to bottom, maybe they are better than the SEC. Maybe top end. the top 2 or 3 teams maybe are better in the SEC, but
Wow.
overall as a conference, you can maybe say that the Pac-12 is better. And I think you can make a serious case for it because really outside of Colorado and California,
Sure.
the Pac-12, like those teams are winning games. They're they're getting to bowl games and they're winning week in and week out. Colorado's just a train wreck, and California is just a forgotten team.
Well, suddenly a Washington State team, which was your cellar dweller for so many years in the Pac-12, has been a fun team to watch the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's exactly true. So, yeah, I tend to agree. I think you can make a case. I'm not saying I agree with it or not, but I think you can make a case that the Pac-12 is the strongest conference from top to bottom in terms of quality of teams.
Is there a long shot here in the Pac-12 that might come into play? We talked a little bit about Oregon State. We talked a little bit about Arizona. Is there a long shot play?
That might be tough. I mean, if you're looking at it, maybe Washington under Chris Peterson.
Sure.
If they might be able to put some stuff together, and Chris Oregon. If you saw what happens with Mariota. Like if Mario got hurt, you kind of saw Oregon kind of fell apart last year. They lost to Arizona. They weren't the same team. So if Mariota gets hurt, Mariota goes down, Washington might be able to make a play. It's not the cover's not exactly bare up there, and now they get an upgraded coach. Sarkisian's no slouch, but Peterson's better. And then maybe looking on, maybe in the South, maybe the Arizona State Wildcat, or maybe Arizona, they might be able to. You never know. But I think you're pretty safe in going with UCLA and Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
But my next team that maybe might make a push, might surprise, might be Washington.
Huh?
But that's what I've got. Silent Miles at quarterback.
Got a couple more minutes left on the show. Let's talk about
the Big 12.
What's really the forgotten conference.
It is,
because they don't
have a conference championship game.
No. By the chance, I posted a Facebook video. If you haven't gone to the Facebook page, check out Ty Havronic, Havrandk, and
Name drop.
a posted video recently of a Big 12, because Big 12 had their media days recently, and so I was following the Big 12 because they had a brand new branding announcement because they're trying to generate conference energy to a conference that really took the hit of conference realignment and took the hit hard.
Yeah.
They don't have that conference title game. And so with their branding announcement, they have all of their coaches talking about how great this Big 12 is, but doing it in a very freakish, morphish sense of all of a sudden, I'm looking at you and you're Dustin. And when they do that, when Cliff Kingsbury turns into Charlie Weiss, it's a pretty funny transition. I think you should take a look at it.
Okay, I'll have to look at it.
That being said, let's move on to more serious topics. This is an interesting conference to watch here at this point. Yes, it's forgotten, but there's plenty of good football to be played here.
No, I agree. Yeah.
I'm going to start it off by not making a long shot play per se in the Big 12 conference, but what most people that are been used to watching college football aren't used to hearing. And that's, I'm going to say the Baylor Bears win this conference.
Okay.
Based on quarterback play, based on offense. I think their offense is loaded with Linwood and Goodley. Defensively, I have some questions.
Yeah.
Bryce Hagler is your anchor at linebacker for Baylor. Defensively, I have a question, but typically, the last couple of years anyway, watching the Big 12, every game's a shootout. Really, to me, defense is a very hot, hard commodity in this conference. It's hard to find. And when games are in shootouts, I'm going to like Baylor to win a lot of those shootouts, and so I'm going to like them to win the conference.
Okay, well, that's fair. I think you can roll with that. I do think Baylor has somewhat. I don't want to discredit them in any way, but I do think part of their success has been that the down years that both and Texas have been having, and
Sure.
but Baylor's gone straight up against them and so I don't want to take away from Baylor. Right now, it's hard to bet against Oklahoma conference because, like Trevor Knight, okay, we saw what he did in the Sugar Bowl. He was absolutely fantastic. Looked like no quarterback that we'd seen all year. But then you watched him just a few weeks earlier against Oklahoma State, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't do anything. He's very inconsistent.
There's a consistency issue.
There's a
with
consistency
Oklahoma.
issue that makes you worry about Oklahoma. But their defense, probably one of the top front sevens in the nation, with
Okay.
striker, linebacker, Taper, Shanahan, all these guys who are going to, or Shannon, They're all going to be able to get. They can get after the passer. They can create a lot of havoc and make a lot of plays. And so, while you might think Baylor will be able to go through and like in shootouts, if you have a team with a front seven, Baylor's got some question marks along the offensive line. If you have a team with the front seven that can get after the passer, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is or no matter how many skill positions you have. If your offensive line can't block, that's how you shut down spread teams. And so Oklahoma might have the talent to be able to shut down a Baylor, and they get Baylor at home this year too. And after losing to Baylor for so many years, year in and year out,
Right.
now that they maybe have
There's a
that
certain
direction
hunger there.
There is a hunger, and now that they have like a direction, they have things figured out. Like Oklahoma, there's always kind of like this random cloud of unknowing with quarterback, who's the running back, who are their receivers. They were kind of in a fog, and it seems like they're maybe coming out of the fog a little bit now.
To me, Oklahoma is in a fog for the first 13 games of the regular season, and you're never really sure if Oklahoma's out of the cloud until they're in a BCS game. That's the way Oklahoma football's been for
So
the
the
past
fog
couple
kept
of
them out
years.
of BCS games for quite some time.
Right, and so you're looking at that. Again, I'm looking at consistency issues.
No, I hear you.
I have some serious consistency questions about the Sooners. When you talk about defense, I mean, I'm looking at guys like Hunter, Fields, Carter, Hackett, and then Dawson and White. They're all frogs. They're all TCU. TCU might be the best defense in this conference.
They were going to be a team that I threw out there as a possible like.
But on the flip side, where's their offense?
Well, they got Jokel now, who is a Texas A&M transfer, and they're going back to a more spread, up-tempo offense.
Nice tidbit there.
They tried to go with like a power running game, Big 12, but it didn't quite work. So they're going back to that spread where they were causing problems and that spread that won them the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin. They're going back to more of that open, pass-happy offense, which fits more of a Big 12 model. And if Jokel can be what they need, he can be that consistent passer, then you got to watch out for maybe a TCU as well. I don't think their top defensive player, whereas Fields got suspended just recently, so it might create some problems. But
Okay.
It's kind of wait and see. I mean, there's like 4 teams that could win this division, and I would not be surprised by either one. Like, I have no problem with your Baylor pick. I think I'm just going to go Oklahoma. That we'll just roll with that.
Would TCU and Texas be the other 2 teams that could possibly win
I
the
could see
division?
that.
Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, I could see that.
Texas maybe
Maybe even the Red Raiders.
a little
Just
bit of a
because
hungry run. I thought Red Raiders,
just Kingsbury,
but then I thought not.
the Ryan Gosling of coaches.
The Red Raiders. Let's do this. We got about 6 more minutes left on the show. Let's move on to the playoffs.
Okay.
And talk the playoffs. We've talked about our conference champions. We talked about who we think's the strong teams. Now we got to find out between those strong teams who's going to get the bid at the end of the season when all the dust is settled to be labeled one of the top 4 teams in the country and play for a chance for a national title.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and we'll just do by seeds here. I'm going to throw my number 1 seed, Alabama. I talked about it when we talked about our SEC preview. I think talent and top to bottom, they are the most loaded team in college football. I think they get the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs.
Okay, I'm going to go Auburn. Just same reason. You took Alabama. I took Auburn. I think Auburn will be there.
Is it almost an automatic bid if you win the SEC?
If you win the SEC, you're
you're
in.
going to
Unless like one side of the division is absolutely terrible,
Right.
And then like they kind of see they end up pulling an upset in the championship game.
So again, we have Alabama and Auburn in this as our number 1 seeds in the college
Mhm.
football playoff. Who would be your number 2 here?
I'm gonna go Big Ten. I'm gonna go Ohio State. I think Ohio State can once again kind of manage through the regular season. I think their toughest game is Michigan State. They win that game. They're going. I don't see them losing another game. They get Michigan at home. Michigan always plays better than they do against anyone else when they play Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
But they get Michigan at home. Big Ten championship game. Whoever they play there, whether it's Wisconsin, whether it's Iowa, whether it's Nebraska, whether it's Northwestern, I think they win that game. And I think just once again, it's kind of just another benefit of the doubt. Like Ohio State can walk through the regular season undefeated, win their conference championship game, and simply by being undefeated, they're your number 2 seed.
Okay, I'm going to go in the same conference but different side because we had different conference championships, different division
So you're
championships.
going Michigan State.
I'm going to take the Michigan State Spartans.
Okay.
Defensively, again, for the same reason we pointed out in our Big Ten preview, I'm going to take the Spartans to be my number 2 seed. So our number 1 and number 2 seeds are different, which is not looking very good for some consistency.
Either way, the show will be right.
The show will be right. We're looking pretty good so far. Number 3 is I'm going to go out to the most improved conference that we talked about, maybe top to bottom.
Okay, I'm just going to say I agree with you.
UCLA.
Yeah.
We have the UCLA Bruins as our number 3 seed. Number 4 is a toss-up because here's where you're looking at that fourth team. Is this going to be a team that's going to be another SEC team or another Big Ten team or
is it going to be a Big 12?
Or separate conference champion?
Or is it going to be the Big 12 champion?
Or is it going to be the Big 12 champion?
Yeah.
Or
the ACC champion.
That's what I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Another conference champion.
Oh, okay.
You were high on Florida State.
No, I wasn't high on Florida State.
To win the ACC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, to win the ACC, but that's just because there's nobody else there.
If they win the ACC, do they get your 4 bid?
Well, the thing that with Florida State is like you're gonna have to see how the voting plays out because they're defending there's that human element because they're the defending champions because they were there last year because they won the ACC. Will people vote them in?
One might say that gives
even
them
with
the
one
right
loss,
to play.
It gives them the right to play, but then
one might say.
But so there is that.
Okay.
There is that. But then what if they have 2 or 3 losses? Then they shouldn't get in.
One of those possibly coming to Clemson.
I just don't see. I don't see it right now.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not.
I don't know. I think your safe bet there is to go Florida State.
Okay.
In there.
But you're not going Florida State.
I'd be tempted to go Alabama, a 1-loss Alabama team, because I think that Big 12 is going to kind of eat each other up,
right?
And I just don't know if you're going to have a team. And I think the way the voting has gone, that's the thing you're seeing. There's over the past, I think 7 seasons, 6 of those last 7 seasons, there's been 2 SEC teams in the top 4, and that's what we're picking. And that's what we're looking for. And that's why I'm going to go Alabama as your 4th seed.
It would be hard to.
It's hard. It looks team or an ACC team. Say like maybe I agree it's tough, but I'm going by numbers. I'm going by statistics in past years, and that's why I'm taking Alabama as your 4.
And here's why I really don't like it is because of when that game is played. When Alabama plays Auburn, which is
it's at the end of the year.
As we've known,
but like
more important.
It's more important, but it's at the end of the year. But look at what happened last year. Alabama didn't drop. Alabama was a top 4 team. Alabama would have been in the conference or would have been in the playoff last year.
Would have been in the playoffs last year. I'm not going to go that way. I will go with the Big 12.
Okay.
I won't say that they eat each other up. Again, because I think that there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the Big 12. Don't get me wrong, but I do believe that Baylor is a very strong football team. Again, offensively, Baylor gets beat, I believe, in the first round of the NCAA tournament playoffs, no doubt about it. But I think that they are in that mix and that they deserve that shot to play for the title. Maybe get exposed a little bit defensively against the major teams, SEC teams, an Alabama, if you will.
Alabama or an Auburn.
But I'm going to throw Baylor into that 4 spot.
That's fair. It's tough to see.
Based on the run of play, it's tough not to say it.
Yeah, it's tough not to say it. It's tough not to say it. Yeah, yeah.
So you're going to throw an Alabama and Auburn over in Oklahoma.
But once again, it's tough. Right. It's tough to go with a consistent Oklahoma. Like when have we seen a consistent Oklahoma team? I feel better about Already in life. But see, that's the thing. Like we haven't seen a consistent Oklahoma team's first season, and I feel better about a 1-loss SEC team, whether it's an Alabama or an Auburn, making it over a Big 12 champion, Oklahoma.
Okay.
I mean, Oklahoma won the Big 12 last year, but look where that got. I mean, they weren't rated in the top 4, and that's what we're looking for at the end of the year for the college conference championship.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for your top 4. And I feel better that it's going to be. I feel better that it's going to be 2 SEC teams over a Big 12 champion.
I would agree. I would agree with you on that. On paper, it does look better. I think record-wise, Baylor will be. Record-wise, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to discredit that.
I have trouble seeing Baylor's defense being enough. They were good. They were top 25 last year, and they got them through a lot of games. It's going to be tough for them to replicate that.
Okay.
I just have trouble seeing that being able to carry through this year. Their offense, once again, will be very good, but their defense, you kind of saw what happened. Like even against USF in their BCS game, USF was able to put up points. Baylor couldn't keep up with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Just my thoughts.
It'll be an exciting college football season indeed. Again, all the action is going to be getting kicked off here on September 1st. with Week 1 of the college football action. So we got a lot of questions certainly still to be answered as this season rolls along here. Huskers, a lot of passion around that. There's a lot of talent pool here with Nebraska. The question is, can they finally execute? Can we get to that stage where we are executing at that level?
It all comes down to us. I think that's the thing with the Big 12 the Big 10. It all comes down to Nebraska. Cut the turnovers, even finish in the positive side on turnovers, and get some punt returns. I think you can get that, and we can do quite well.
Turnovers and punt returns.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's that simple.
Yes. September 1st, college football season kicking off. This has been the Ryan and Tyson Show. We thank you for joining us. We thank you for listening in on our arguments and even bearing with us through some long shot picks as well that might not make sense now, but
they will not make sense in the future. Duke will not happen. I guarantee this.
17 weeks from now, I will
10 Taco Bravo lunches.
Be more than happy.
10 Taco Bravo lunches. Are you that confident, Duke? 10 Taco Bravo lunches.
Are we going to make the bet right here, right now?
Right here, right now.
10 Taco Bravo lunches.
That Duke wins the ACC.
I can't make that bet.
See? Prove my point. Booyah.
See you later, everybody. Bye.
Yes. You didn't have to hold your breath.
Well, we're still on the air.
Yeah, we are.
Yep. So, we didn't even talk about Notre Dame.
Oh, no, I
Didn't even mention the Irish.
Oops.
Yep. That will happen.
That will happen.
I don't know. Malik's Ever Golston's back, 20 pounds heavier, but Malik Zaire is also back up, and he's pushing for.
Sure. Yes. Probably not. I didn't hear it go off, so obviously you're not gonna hear it go off.
It ain't too late.
Yes.
Suddenly living in a brand new state.
All right. Well, that was the Ryan and Tyson Show, brought to you by thewatchfulpenguin.com.
Mercy.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
We have.
It was a tough one.
Yes.
What time is it?
It is
4:40.
4. Yes.
Yeah.
It is that time. We do. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna go play some FIFA. We'll talk to you later, everybody.